Life and Death is easily one of my favorite expansion packs in The Sims 4. I bought it immediately, no questions asked. That being said, I've never actually built a cemetery, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do today. It was at this point, as I'm staring at this giant 64 by 64 lot, that I was questioning all of my life choices, but I pressed on and I decided that in order to break up this lot and make it feel like it wasn't just a bunch of plots on the ground, that I would add some terrain manipulation and create some raised areas, some hills, and that will come back to bite me later in the speed build. But for now, I decided to add in a kind of pond fountain thing. This was actually interesting for me because I first tried a fountain, but I didn't think that it looked right. It like wasn't deep enough, but then I didn't want to do a pond using terrain manipulation because they look so like organic and natural, which is fine for like 90% of these builds. But for this one, I wanted it to feel like very intentional, like they had created a reflection pool or something peaceful where you could go and sit kind of off in the middle of the cemetery. So I decided to do a pool. It may seem random that I did a pool, but I wanted it to be deep enough where I could put an alligator. This is all sounding so ridiculous as I say it back, but I wanted to have an alligator and I wanted to have swans and lily pads. So I ended up doing a pool, and in order to make it so that no one would swim in this pool, I raised it up just one level so your Sims actually can't get in because it thinks it's on two different levels. It ended up working out cute. It looks good in the end, I promise. Here you can see I am adding in a bunch of trees. This also helped with making sure the lot felt like it was really full. You can see on all of the hills I added a crypt, and some of them will have a crypt and a grave up at the top, and I really liked how this turned out because in my mind what you can do is kind of claim one of these crypts as like your family crypt, and if you're playing with a legacy, you can put your legacy founder in the separate grave site right next to the crypt, so they have like their own little special spot. That was kind of my whole intention behind this cemetery. I wanted it to be really flexible, which is kind of weird to say about a cemetery, but I wanted you to be able to kind of find different little nooks and areas that would work for you and your gameplay. You'll see later on I have all of the crypts on the hills. Some have the plots next to them. Some areas are just like two little plots right next to each other. So if you have a couple that you want to bury together, you can put them next to each other. I think it turned out really cute in the end. You'll also notice that I'm not building this in Ravenwood. I decided to put it in Windenburg. And honestly, since I started making all this content for my channel, I've built in Windenburg a lot. Like, I fully admit that, but it is such a good world. So underrated. When I built the modern fall home on this island area, I realized that this area was kind of lacking in like creepy cemetery vibes. So I bulldozed the lot that was on the 64 by 64, and you can see like once I started placing in all of the greenery and everything, it looks like a cemetery was meant to go here the entire time. Obviously we didn't have Life and Death when Get Together came out, but we do have like the cool ruins and stuff. It just fits so perfectly. Now you might notice me getting really particular about where I'm trying to place things, and that is in fact the terrain manipulation coming back to bite me in the butt. I cannot tell you how much I struggled. I knew it was going to be a struggle off the bat, but I knew that I wanted to have hills and layers and like raised levels. So I said, you know what, that's a problem for Toastie later on. And it was, in fact, a problem. And I tried so hard not to use the tool mod for most of this build. You'll see that I do, in fact, give in the end. I wanted to try and see, like, can I manipulate the terrain enough to where it works and that things don't jump? That's the main problem when you do this terrain manipulation and you're trying to put objects close to the hill, but not on the hill. They will naturally start to jump up the closer you get to the edge, and it is so frustrating. Like, it really limits where you can put certain things. So for the first couple of days that I worked on this build, I did not use the tool mod. The tool mod, by the way, is by Twisted Mexi, and Twisted Mexi also created Better Build By. I have both installed in my game, and like I said, I was trying not to use tool mod. I'm not sure why. I think maybe just because if you're like a casual player, you may not necessarily know what it is, and I didn't want to create any kind of confusion for what I was doing. But listen, these hills gave me so much trouble that I was like, I'm sorry, I have to do it. You can even see, like, look how far away these plots are from the hill behind them. That is purely because if I had scooted them back a millimeter, they would have jumped up ever so slightly, and then the nameplate at the base wouldn't have been flat with the ground. And for a while I was like, maybe I don't care, but it looked so weird. It really looked so weird. Something else you'll notice about this build is that I tried not to put any graves in like straight lines and rows. I wanted it to feel really natural and organic, like you could wander and meander through. I wanted it to feel old. Everything in Windenburg is obviously so ancient. I mean, we have the ruins that you can go visit. So I wanted to kind of fit that same vibe, and I felt like a traditional cemetery where there's just rows and rows of plots. It just didn't make sense for this lot and this build. So I kind of tried to get creative about where exactly the graves went. And you can see I'm kind of laying out headstones just to see, would this work for this area? And I do eventually switch all of those out. Oh my gosh, and now you can see that I decided to go for the outhouse. I thought about building a structure that I would use for the bathrooms and maybe a place where you could hold a funeral on site if you wanted to. But to be honest, I just felt like it wasn't working. I cut out all the footage, but I built like 3 different structures that I all ended up bulldozing because they just weren't working with the vibe. So because I needed a bathroom for the lot requirement, I decided I would just use the little outhouse that we got in the, oh, what login reward event was that? It was the nature one, I think. We've had so many, and there's another one happening right now as I film this, the Forever Friends one. If you haven't played The Sims in a while, I'm guilty of this, where I play for like a weekend straight and then I don't play for weeks and weeks, sometimes a month. If you're like me and that's the reality for you, then you should just log in and do it, because if you don't get all of the items by completing the login reward, you'll never have a chance to get them again, which is kind of irritating. So the outhouse was a reward for one of those events, and I placed it here because it counts as the toilet and the sink, which is kind of nice. Oh, I love this little area. So this is where I was talking about, where I put 2 grave sites right next to each other, and then I actually fenced them in a little bit. You'll see me doing that now. It's just a really low little wrought iron fence, but I think it looked so sweet. And I can imagine you putting, like, maybe if you're playing in a legacy, like your original founders can be next to each other. I just think it's nice, and it kind of creates, like, I don't know, a little separate private area. And that's kind of what I meant about flexibility. Like, I think in the end, I have a set of 2, I have all the crypts, I have a set of 3 next to each other, I did a set of 4 graves next to each other, and actually you'll see me put those in right now. I just liked creating all these little like private spaces, and they're all different sizes, and I don't know, I think it's kind of fun. I'm really excited to put this lot into one of my legacies and actually use it and play with it. I did kind of lie before when I said that I'd never built a cemetery before, because I have in fact built a cemetery, but I built it on like a 20 by 30 lot in Brindleton Bay. Brindleton Bay is where I'm currently playing with my legacy family, and it's the first generation that I'm playing with, so I liked the idea of them having their own family cemetery in the world where I started the legacy. So I built just a really small little private family cemetery, and it has 2 crypts and maybe like 10 plots all around, and I built a really pretty like church looking thing that's really just the bathroom disguised, but I think it looks really nice. And ultimately, I'm like very excited that I have that for my legacy, so everyone can just be in one place. Although I will say, this is just a side little tangent rant now. My legacy founder, her name is Parker, and she was basically, the whole storyline that I'm playing is that she's like lawyer Barbie. So she's got blonde hair and she dresses in all pink, and she was working her way up in the lawyer career. And I had her living in San Myshuno. So she was like big city girl girl. She had the cutest little like Upper West Side apartment, and she had a best friend. And I met this random townie in the park one day. I think we were in Central Park. Her and I hit it off. We were best friends. And then of course, you know, time moves on. My sim ended up like getting married and having kids and moving to Brendleton Bay, where she's like settled down now. All of a sudden, neighborhood stories got my best friend and she died. And we were so young. Like, I'm still a young adult in this save. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? So I start panicking because I realized, oh my gosh, I don't know where she lives. So I have to go get her grave so I can put it in my like family plot, because I'm gonna have a crypt that's just for like really close friends or maybe best friends of my heirs, so that we can all still be together. So I was like, I have to go hunt for her grave now. I open MC Command Center. My best friend was homeless. She was homeless! So there was no way for me to go get her grave. I thought about looking and sifting through every single lot in this game to see like if she had died on a lot, like maybe her grave would still be there. I have yet to find it. I think it's gone into the ether. And the worst part about that is that normally, you know, if someone in your family or a close friend dies, you would go get their grave, you put it on a plot, and then you would come and visit like a cemetery like this, and you can mourn and remember her and like visit her. Well, with no grave, she has no plot, there's no way to visit her, and I got a pop-up saying that her memory was slipping away, and that my sim needed to go visit her headstone before she was forgotten forever. But there was no headstone. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm sorry I'm yelling. This was really so traumatic. This was like my very first best ever friend that I made in The Sims, and she died. Don't even know how she died to this day. And she's gone forever. And now because I can't like remember her, like she's not in my relationship panel anymore. It's like so tragic. Oh my gosh. Okay, back to the build. Sorry for that interlude. I just had to share that with someone because it really like drove me absolutely ballistic for a few weeks. Back to the build. You can see that I'm now really starting to struggle with things jumping up. Like, I'm not getting any of these plants near as close to the ledge as I wish that they would. And you can see, especially with this rock is as close as I can get it without it jumping up. And it was at this point where I said, F it, I need my tool mod. I actually needed to give myself a refresher on tool mod. I had not used it in a hot minute just because I haven't done any builds like this where I was doing weird things that required it. So I had to give myself a little refresher on that, and then you'll see me break it out later on, and I end up doing a ton with tool mod. And the only thing that I really ended up using it for was just sinking everything into the ground. So I would use the elevate tool and I would just sink everything ever so slightly. That ultimately saved me, because once I succumbed to the fact that I was just, oh my god, my water bottle. Once I succumbed to the fact that I was going to be using tool mod, I did like a full sweep of the entire property. Here it is. I did a full sweep of the entire property, and there were so many things that were floating that I had no idea. Like trees and rocks, and some of the like low-lying plants were like this far off the ground. It was a lot. So ultimately, I'm glad that I went through and did that. You can see that I put in a few stairs going up to some of these platforms. I tried to smooth the terrain as much as possible, and actually, your Sims are better about getting up hills than you probably think they are. Ultimately, I kind of just liked the way the stairs looked, like they were built into the side of the cliff, and I think it looked really nice. This little single headstone on this hill is actually one of my favorite parts of this build. I love the little bench facing it. I just think it's sweet. I'm putting in little benches here and there. These are actually the benches from Romantic Garden, and this little statue thing is also from Romantic Garden. I ended up using a lot of this kit. It really worked nicely with everything from Life and Death, and because I was going for like old lived in statues around, it just worked. It just worked perfectly. You can see that I'm trying to make this arch work. Eventually I am going to get rid of it. I didn't really know what I was gonna do with this area as I was building it. Ultimately, I decided I was gonna make a really fancy private plot. So I don't know who you would put in here. There's literally just one gravesite, and I do like a couple of benches, but it's like so fancy and like so, I don't know, private, tucked away. It's very dark and moody. I'm like, I don't know who I would put here. Maybe Bella Goth, if Bella Goth unfortunately dies in one of my saves. Like, maybe I'll put her in here. I don't really know. If you have vampires and Vlad dies, this is definitely giving Vlad. Either way, I think it turned out really cute, which I don't know if it's good to say that I think this this like gravesite turned out cute. I don't know if that's like ultra appropriate, but it was what I was going for, you know? Like, I wanted this place to be like a nice place to come and remember your Sims or just hang out. If you hang out in cemeteries with your Sim, I don't know. It's kind of giving Elena from Vampire Diaries, so you know, whatever floats your boat. You can see I'm using the romantic garden lights. I used those everywhere. They all got put next to the crypts. And if you haven't seen the crypts at night, they actually are so pretty because they light up and they glow. So that paired with these lights, it's kind of a vibe at night. I won't lie to you. I don't know what you'd be doing in a cemetery late at night, but it's honestly really pretty and really cool. I hope I show it later on. You can see that I felt like this area was just a little dark even though I had those lights. So I added these candles onto the sculpture. These are from Wedding Stories and I actually love these so much. I think they're really pretty. So I added these onto the sculpture itself and it just gives it kind of a nice glow. This is like by far the fanciest plot in this entire thing. Like, whoever Mr. Windenburg is, like, he lives here. Well, lives here. He's resting here. I'm adding some of these like tall little grassy bits just around. I didn't want this cemetery to feel like it was too overgrown or dead, but I wanted it to feel like, you know, it's been here for a while and plants are starting to like take over, and even some of the crypts have vines just like naturally growing up the sides. So I thought it really looked nice in the end. You can see that I'm filling in with a lot of this grass. This is a perfect example of tool mod saving the day because all of this grass is floating like this high off the ground, and I was like, we just cannot have that. So I sunk everything down and now it looks like it's like really kind of like growing into the cliffside, and that is exactly what I wanted. It ended up looking so nice. The thing about tool mod is it is kind of trial and error until you really like get in the swing of it. So you may end up having to like give it a few attempts before you finally find the right placement. Here you can see I'm filling in our swimming pool pond and I added a bunch of fish. I'm really going overboard with the lily pads and I think it actually looks really good. And then I do in fact add in some swans. So there are 4 swans just chilling and then an alligator right in the middle. And I love the vibes of that, you know, like this place would definitely have an alligator. Ooh, here's a perfect example of how I have the crypt and the grave site right next to it. So if it were me playing, I would definitely put like the founder of my legacy in that special grave site, and you could do like a photo of them, candles, and like really make it pretty, and then everyone else can go in the crypt. And I think that there's like 20 slots in the crypt for headstones, so that's not too bad. Here I also put in some more of the like brick cliffside, which I actually really like because I think that for this area in particular, it made the separation between the grave sites down below and the crypt up on top just a little bit more distinct. And I think it looks really nice. It also makes like the top part look very intentional, and you can see I once again added in more of this grass. I love this grass. It's everywhere in this build. I almost like rediscovered it. It's very like feathery and light. And if you play The Sims, you know that the grass in this game is such a nightmare sometimes. It's like so weird and like scraggly. So I don't know how else to describe it. Like, it looks like it's all in these straight lines. This one actually looks like very natural and feathery and light. So I was pleased by that. You can see I changed it to evening time and I was like low-key gushing over the lighting on this lot. I thought it looked so pretty. This ended up being such a beautiful build, which I know is odd to say about a literal cemetery, but it really is a nice place. And then when I was playtesting it to make sure that all of my hills were accessible, people were like running around and jogging, and there was a bunch of people sitting on those benches facing the little reflection pond. And I don't know, it was just like very good vibes out here. I like it. I'm glad that I didn't go for anything that was like too overly spooky. Now you can see here, this may be a controversial choice, and if you download this lot and you don't like the way that this looks, I would not blame you if you wanted to delete it. I added in a wishing well, and I kind of tried to tell a story with this. I put the wishing well in, and then you'll see that eventually I add a bunch of like dead, dying plants all around. I have the dying tree. I put in like the bushes that are all like scary and mangled. And I liked the idea that the wishing well's magic was causing all of the plants around it to like shrivel up and die. And like maybe the story is that the wishing well kept granting like bad wishes, because you know how sometimes you can wish for money and it'll give you a bunch of money, or sometimes it'll take money away from you. Sometimes you ask for a promotion and it will grant your wish, and sometimes you will get demoted at work. So it's really hit or miss, this wishing well. And I liked the idea that it's been like granting, or rather not granting, a lot of wishes and making bad things happen. And so all of the magic around it has caused the plants to die. I don't know if that's a stretch or not, but I think the wishing well is fun gameplay, and I thought it was a cute little thing to add to this lot. So, you know, I went for it. And thus starts the terrain paint. You guys, when I tell you that I probably spent an hour alone on all of this terrain paint, I mean it. I went around every single nook and cranny of this build and added in a bunch of different layers of terrain paint. I went in with just brown under all of the rocks, and the plants and the trees and all of the crypts have complete terrain paint around them. I did it for every single gravesite as well. I think that this just helped everything feel like it had been sitting there for a very, very long time. That was like my whole inspiration behind this really organic, natural, flowing cemetery. I'm glad that I did it, but it took a long time. For a lot of it, I tried to just keep it to one layer, but normally when I do terrain paint, I like to add a couple different layers just to make it look a little bit more realistic. You can see with the wishing well, I added a little bit more in the front to make it look like Sims had constantly been walking up to it. I tried to go a little bit heavy-handed around all of the grave sites. I talked about this a little bit in my tiny haunted house build, where I went really heavy with the terrain paint, and I think that's something that I've actually learned from the EA builds, is that every time I bulldoze an EA build, the terrain paint on the ground is always so heavy, but it looks really good. Like, I think that I needed to take a little cue from some of those builds. So I'm trying to go a little bit more heavy-handed. And honestly, I think that once you start playing in it, you don't even really notice the terrain paint at all. So what does it matter if I go like a little heavy, you know? I love here too that I added in some of the different plots that are the wood and the dirt on top. I think it's nice. This is like so realistic. There's so much variation in all of these different grave sites. So we've got the fancy crypts, you know, that maybe like a family owns. We've got some of the stone raised ones that look really nice. We've got some of the beds that are, you know, like I said, the wood and the sand. And then some of them are just headstones on the ground. I like the story that tells, that there's like a variety of different Sims that would be buried here. It's not just like a bunch of rich people and crypts, it's everyone. And I think that that's really realistic. I'm about to ask the absolute craziest question, but if you had to be buried here in this cemetery, already off to a crazy start, where would you want to be buried? I think that I'd want to be in the crypt that's like on the hill in the very middle. There's like a crypt and a grave site. Well, maybe I'd want to be the grave site next to the crypt, but I like that it's kind of in the center of everything. My second choice would be the single headstone that's on the hill, kind of towards the back right side. It's like off, tucked away under a tree. It's got like a little bench at the end of it, and I think that that's my second choice of where I'd want to be. Ooh, you can see here how good good it looks at night when everything is all lit up. I'm just doing some final checks, and I think that's the end of the build. I know that went quick and it all kind of looks the same, so I'm gonna pop into the game and give you a full tour of everything. Please no full pop-up, please no full pop-up. Ugh, no. It happened again. I don't know if this glitch is happening to anyone, but when I get the full page pop-up and then it takes me to the main screen, everything is grayed out. I can click escape 1,000 times, nothing happens. I can't click anywhere, and I have no choice but to exit. Okay, we're good. So I built this on the 64 by 64 lot on the island in Windenburg. Honestly, it looks like it was meant to be here this whole time. This whole area is so beautiful, and I could absolutely see a giant cemetery sitting kind of at the top of this hill overlooking the ocean. Like, hello? Your Sims will load in here in the front. To me, that's so counterintuitive, but whatever, that's where the front of the lot is. This is our reflection pool in the center. And of course, we have the swans swimming around. Maybe if we're lucky, we will see the alligator pop up. And if you look really closely, you can see some of the fish swimming around. I added a lot of fish in here. Ooh! Oh! Oh my gosh. Isn't he kind of cute? And now it's raining. Let's go to build mode. Okay, I'm gonna give this tour in the evening because it's so beautiful at this time of day. So like I said, you load in on the front here, and then we've got a set of 4 small little graves here with some really sweet little benches. This is our giant reflection pool, and I put 2 grave sites on either end. Over here, we have one of our hills, and you can see this is what I was talking about with having a crypt as well as one single plot. Down here you'll see is the wishing well that is slowly sucking all of the life out of the plants around it. And that is right next to our little 2-plot situation. It's fenced in, it's really cute. I also put the grave sites kind of close together. I don't know, I think this is sweet. This would be really cute for a married couple. When you come over here to this hill, this is the plot that I was talking about, where this is like my second choice of where I would want to be buried. I just think it's so sweet and private by itself, and like the lighting is just beautiful, and it's got its own little seat. Very peaceful. Then you come up here. This is the far right corner. This is probably the most plain crypt area. I didn't do too much. Coming this way, this is where we have our very fancy, very dark and moody private little grave site. I honestly love the way that this turned out. I think this looks so cool. Around the tree next to it, I just have a few of the stone plots. Over here, I have some of the wooden plots with a cute little bench. In this back corner, I did add a staircase to get up, even though I'm sure your Sims are fine. This is kind of epic. I love the 2 crypts right next to each other. We've got a light in the middle, and then I added a nice statue here, and then of course there's a couple places to sit. I think that this looks really cool. If you've got like a really big legacy that you're playing with, you could easily fill up these 2 crypts and have like kind of a dedicated place. And honestly, if you needed more room, like you could delete some of these trees and add in some of the like stone caskets here. I do love this though. Coming over this way, we've got the bathroom and the trash can tucked as far away and as hidden as possible because they do not go with my vibe. Over here is where we have our set of 3 headstones together. I think this is cute, tucked away. This is another one of those raised little crypt areas with a single casket, and I think that this one is just so pretty. It's so lush and well done. I like that it has the rock border along the edge as well, and just the little dedicated staircase to get up. Moving over, we've got the set of 3 stone caskets and then another crypt up on this top corner. With that, we are back at the pool. This is kind of a top-down overview for you just to kind of get a sense of everything that's here. And when you look at the lot requirements, I put 21 grave sites and 6 crypts. So this is definitely a pretty big cemetery. It would take a while to fill it up, and that's if you're like really hunting for people's graves. I think this place just turned out absolutely beautiful. If you want to place this cemetery in your game, then my EA ID is just ToastieBuilds, and this lot is called Windenburg Cemetery. I'm really excited to play in it. Let me know if you decide to download it and go on a big towny grave hunt. I have to again say thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. I am like so blown away that people are watching and liking what I do. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're not already, then please feel free to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye. I don't even know how many hours I spent on this build, but I had the best time. When I tell you that I locked in and zoned out and did all of the terrain paint in one go, I was vibing for sure.